One of the emerging bike styles that I'm most excited about are small bikes. One of the most unique ones I saw that was a real head turner at Eurobike was the Monopole. In this video, we're going to do a first look at the Monopole and answer some of your questions about it. So who or what is Monopole, or Monopoly as someone asked? I believe it's Monopole looking at the design. They're based in Zurich and the frames are built not too far from here in the French Pyrenees. One of their goals is to source as much of their componentry within the EU. So that's why you get things like the pinion drivetrain. Currently, they offer one kind of bike and they call it their tool bike. It comes in a version with a motor or their bio version, which is the non-electric assist one. This particular one, despite all the gadgetry and the bulk at the bottom bracket, is actually a mechanical bio-powered pedal bike. It is, however, sporting the Pinion Smart Shift, so there are some batteries involved there. It's their new electronic drivetrain setup in this cool drop bar configuration. Interestingly, the bike comes in sizes. There is a small, medium, large, and that affects the stack and reach. So it's not like a one-size-fits-all bike, which I thought was kind of interesting. Other unique things about the frame are the wheel sizes. The front is 20 inches and the rear is 24. This makes for a really compact package lengthwise while keeping the loads low to the ground. I believe their goal was to keep the entire length of the bike under 2 meters. And because of that, it will fit on a standard rear rack for your car and won't extend beyond the width of the vehicle. In fact, that's how it arrived here in Girona, on the back of someone's hitch rack. This short length and smaller wheels also makes it really easy to fit in the tiny Spanish style elevators we have here, as well as trains and of course apartments. If you can fit a regular bike in that space, chances are you'll be able to fit the Monopole. The drivetrain, like I mentioned, is the Pinion Smart Shift, electronic shifting version, 12 speed. It's controlled by some TRP levers, and side note, these have to be like the grabbiest and strongest like brakes I've ever tried. You've probably noticed the funky oversized bottom bracket area. This is actually modular. They make a 68 millimeter BSA insert that can be installed. The other bio-powered drivetrain option that they offer is the Shimano Alfine. So sadly, no way to mount a derailleur system. Another side note, this was a special build for Eurobike, hence the sportier, eye-catching drop bar build. Their stock builds are typically built up using flat bars. In terms of how much it can carry, the front carrier rack is said to carry up to 30 kilograms. They're working on other rack options. You can get it with a crate, as well as a semi-enclosed basket option. Currently, there's no child carriers, but it's in the works. Back to the wheels and tires for a bit. They're running Billy Bonkers that are fairly wide. I want to say about like two inches or so. And these are great in giving a plush and cushion ride despite the small wheel size. Probably one of the most striking and unique features of the bike is the belt drive, not just for the drivetrain, but for the steering. It's supposed to offer a pretty precise steering experience without the need of building like a mechanical linkage. They've done a lot of testing with it under load, under braking forces, to make sure the belt doesn't pop off. There's no real tensioning that goes on with it. I think it's, they set it once and that's it. You don't touch it. There is a system, when you take a look at the steer tube, it's got a eccentric set of cog, and you can use that to clock the wheel to make sure it's straight. If you look at the top of the steer, it has a clamp that holds that whole bottom half under preload. So if you want to change the stem or futz around with the controls, you don't have to undo the whole thing and the whole thing won't go out of whack. So in terms of some notable emissions, there's only one pair of bottle cage bosses, and that's right along what would be the head tube. There's also no eyelets for a rear rack, which I think is a little bit of a missed opportunity, because sometimes you've got big cargo, but you also want to carry things in just like a painter. In terms of how it rides, I've ridden it around town, picked up some packages, and it's super fun. When I first hopped on it, it felt like a regular bike. It's really maneuverable. Like, you can turn the steering like 90 degrees and make really tight corners. I feel like it rides more normal bike-like, even more so than something like the Omnia Minimax. Part of that's a wheelbase. It's just the same length as like a regular bike, so it doesn't feel like a yacht when you're steering the bike. The shifting system in the Pinion's really interesting. Most of the shifts are fairly quiet, although it's like a very audible shifting system. And some of the gear changes, there's like an exchange of cog sets or something, so it's a little bit more pronounced. And it kind of sounds like you're loading up a VHS tape right below you. I think the range is decent. It's somewhere in the 400%. I'll flash it on screen in case I get it wrong. but I plan to do a separate video on my experience with the pinions. This is my first time in a separate video. So I'm going to leave the pinion questions off of this for the time being. But we will go to your questions. I asked you guys in the community posts, what you want to know about the monopole, and this is what you asked. First question is from Mr. Towner. How does it compare to the Omnia Minimax? Advantages, disadvantages? Probably its biggest advantage is its small size. It's way easier to get into an elevator, just to maneuver out of our apartment or, on the city streets. It's just a lot easier to handle. Probably its biggest disadvantage compared to the Minimax, there's a couple. One would be the price. These bikes are expensive. I think the cheapest version of this bike that you can have built up is about 5,500 USD. So the Omnium in comparison is a lot more affordable. Also, the Omnium, depending on which ones you get, have like a lot more carrying capacity. The Omnium is a bike you get when you're regularly going to get like pretty large packages. I feel like this bike makes sense if you just run it with a crate and use that to carry things that fit within those dimensions. So more maneuverable, but less capacity. Okay, Biky Clown 4669 has a lot of questions. I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. How good is it at hauling cargo? With the cargo I picked up, it hauls it great. Obviously, it's not the cargo bike I'd go to if I had to pick up a bicycle frame or other really like large packages. But if I can work within that constraint, then it works great. The next few sentences is about how rideable is it with hills? Is it geared correctly? With the pinion drivetrain, it gets pretty decent gearing. For truly heavy loads, I'd probably swap out the cogs to get even lower gears. As of now, I think it's like in the low 20s, but you can adjust the cogs so you can get to that 17 gear inch range or below. I've not weighed the bike, but I suspect it's definitely over 30 pounds. It's somewhere between 30 and 40. It's heavy for a regular bike, but par for a cargo bike and not like excessively heavy. So I do think it's fairly rideable as just a bike without any assist. Can you add a rear rack? No. Does a smaller diameter front wheel seem to be smooth over bumpy road? A small wheel diameter is always going to suffer on like really bumpy terrain, but like I said, the big chubby tires take out a lot of the sting. It's no different than the Omnium Cargo. Mr. Questful asks, what does the belt steering feel like? Do you think you'd prefer this design or a metal steering armature? Is the drivetrain belt the same as the steering? Let's start with that one. I believe both the drivetrain belt and the steering belt are made by Gates, and I'd like to think that the steering belt isn't subjected to the same amount of load and forces as the drivetrain belt. So if the drivetrain belt can survive, I don't think the steering belt's under too much stress. What does the belt steering feel like? Honestly, it feels just like a normal bike. There's like no lag or latency. The wheel isn't super out in front of you, so it doesn't have that disconnected, disconcerting feeling. It feels like just like a normal bike. I think in some ways this design has lots of advantages. There's not metal linkage to contend with, to get knocked around, to run into things. I think they feel about the same. The only advantage at this point to like a arm linkage system is that you can see it and it seems somehow more fixable than a belt drive. At least that's the vibe I'm getting from people. A lot of people concerned about the belt drive. I think I've not put a ton of miles on it and really stressed it out, but I think it'll be okay. Roger Warsazawa asks, is what's WTF a valid question? Yes, it is a very unique looking bike. Ahmed Sale Con 9181. Why drop bars? Again, it was a Eurobike build. You wanted to make something flashy and really eye-catching. Other than that, if you're riding really long distances, why not? Why not? Like, I don't understand where people have a rule where cargo bikes should only have flat bars, and that doesn't make sense to me. Whatever is comfortable and suits the purpose. Okay, B plus asks, is there the feel of a disconnect or play in the steering? No. None that I can feel at the moment. Mr. Questful, how easy would it be to convert a flat bar / alt bar setup? Not having done it with a pinion or an Alfine, I can't say if it's easy or hard. It's gonna be as easy or hard as it is gonna deal with like the Pinion or the Alfine. How do I feel about a cargo bike with drop bars? I think they're great. I had a cargo bike based business, and I had drop bars because I had to go long distances. It's not a big deal. Nefrak asks, how much does it cost? This particular build is, I think, north of 8,000. Lavia Johnson asks, what's with that bottom bracket placement? Thoughtful face. Again, that bottom bracket area is meant to be modular. You can put a motor assist system there, the pinion, or even a 68mm BSA, so you can do an Alfine hub. It's a modular design. Tom Cruise 3774 asks, can a person sit in the front as long as that person is less than 30 kilograms? It could. Another one, Charles Husley 3103. Why does that cargo bike have drop bars? A lot of people confused about cargo bikes and drop bars. I don't get it. Like, just because it's a cargo bike doesn't mean it can't have drop bars. It could have bullhorn bars for whatever reason. Mr. My Two Coins asks, okay, is it fun to ride? Yes, it's super fun. It's probably one of the most lively, zippiest front-loading cargo bikes I've tried. So in that respect, it's super fun. It looks super cool. It's totally a head turner. Okay, IDIS2446, will there be a mechanical version with pinion? No E with pinion would be great. Yes, they offer that. Again, this was a special Eurobike build, and they decided to pimp it out with the new Smart Shift. Becca 837 asks, can I put my dog on that? Absolutely. They sell a crate that goes along with this platform, and lots of pictures of having pets on it. So yeah, something you can do. David Temple 7490 asks, I'd love to know the viability of it as a get around bike for times when you don't have any cargo. And I think that's one of the big selling points of this bike is without a load, it's still fun to ride. I feel like the Omnium, even without a load, you're still kind of aware it's a cargo bike, but with this one, because of that shorter wheelbase, it just feels like a quirky small bike. So Reanimator 999, rectangular frame doesn't look sturdy. That was another recurring comment. It's like a lot of people freaked out that it's a rectangular frame and not a triangle. I think maybe that would be the case if we're talking standard bicycle tubing, but this is like really herky stuff. Like much larger diameter than regular tubing. But then again, I haven't done a ton of riding with it, so we'll see. Dad Watch 3606. Can you transport it with a car using standard equipment? Perhaps the wheelbase is too long. No, the wheelbase is just right. And yes, you can transport it in a car with standard equipment. Okay, Coldly Pleasy 1268. I like it. It's funky, great for the city, but to be honest, wouldn't a front basket or rack or any regular bike do the same thing? No. I picked up a box the other day that would have been a stretch to fit in a Wald 137 and too big for a pannier. So this bike was perfect for that box. I guess if you had enough bungee cords, you could strap it onto a rear rack. So I do think that there are going to be specific types of loads that this bike will excel in that you can't put in a pannier or just like a regular bike. Okay, the Blair Bike Project. What's the maximum cargo height? Looks like anything over 1'6" will interfere with the drop bars. Yeah, that's a problem with the drop bars, but again, that's why they offer it mostly with flat bars. Last but not least, Flor Delis Pens asks, is mayonnaise an instrument? And yes, it's clearly an instrument. If you guys like this video and want to see the final review, don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the fact that we're focusing on non-racy and quirky bikes, please consider supporting the channel by joining us on Patreon, buying some merch, and as always, keep the supple side down.